It's even there on your iPhone and smartphone. The same local news, weather, and sports that's on the full-size edition is on your iPhone and smartphone just by going to DeWittDailyNews.com. If you haven't tried it, why don't you go to Central Illinois' leading online source for local news, police blotter, for the record information, obituaries, and more on your desktop, laptop, iPhone, or smartphone, DeWittDailyNews.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in this segment of the morning show today is Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools. Good morning, Mrs. Vogt. How are you today?
Good morning, Seth. I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for asking, and thank you for making time for us, as always. It's good to hear from you today and all the things happening in Bement schools. And, I'll tell you what, Mrs. Vogt, let's start with what was a big to-do last week in Piatt County, and sounds like you were really at the head of some of these happenings. A big reunification drill last week in Piatt County. Tell me about this from your perspective.
Yeah, sure, Seth. So the process actually started over a year ago with our school district partnering with the other districts in Piatt County Sheriff, to establish a reunification site that all of the schools in Piatt County would use. Mm-hmm. Now, in talking with our students last week, preparing for this drill, they had some really great questions, like what happens if we have a fire, but then the fire department says we can come back in the school. Absolutely, then we would come back in the school. But if the fire department says we cannot come back in the school, like I explained to them, the reason we go to the Monticello Christian Church out of Bement is because we need to keep our roadways clear for the first responders to come to the site where there is the fire, and not have parents also trying to pick up students at the school. It wouldn't make sense. Mm-hmm. We have a couple of locations nearby the school where we could go, but that again would cause parent traffic to be competing with first responder traffic. And so that's where, if there's a need for us to evacuate the school, we wouldn't always go off site. It depends on the situation, but we have now established our off site reunification location. We have practiced with parents. We had agencies, not just from Piatt County, but Champaign County, Macon County. We had a security officer for several Chicago suburb schools came and participated. Says it was absolutely incredible just to see the number of people who responded and thinking, if we ever have an emergency, all of those people now have an idea of what to do. It's not going to eliminate stress. It's not going to eliminate concern, but it will help us have a little more peace of mind going into an emergency, that we sort of know what to expect. Not sure. Sort of. We do know what to expect. We did find areas where we can make improvements, but I have to say, if we didn't change anything that we did last week, there isn't any suggestion that was made that would be detrimental to the process. Just some logistics and making sure that everyone can hear when a name is being called, for example. And those are things that I consider easy fixes.
Well, and one thing you said there at the top, Mrs. Vogt, I think is should be stressed is, you hear drills like this or exercises like this that take place, and oftentimes, it goes right to the thought process of a school emergency, like a shooting or an intruder or something like that. But you mentioned it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be anything where the school day is disrupted and kids have to be reunified with families after or during the event.
Absolutely. And that's something that I learned from my office window. I can see train tracks that go right through Bement. And what some people weren't aware of until we started talking about the reunification process, the train that derailed in Ohio last February, that train was stopped in Bement for mechanical issues. So it very easily could have happened here in Bement that train derailed. I also learned from the Piatt County Emergency Management Agency Director, Aaron Lanus, that when a train comes through town, like the ones that come through. In fact, I hear a train whistle right now. Oftentimes there are hazardous materials, there are military weapons, just some really concerning items that are going through our community that if something happens with that train and it derails, we will not be able to stay in our school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like, as you mentioned, oftentimes the first thought goes to an intruder or an active shooter, but realistically, the number of trains that come through this town, that is my top concern, followed by a natural disaster, a fire. And, not to challenge anyone who might think ill will or want to do harm, that's not the case at all. But if somebody were to try to hurt my staff and my students, I feel like we as a group understand the steps that need to be taken to minimize injuries.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, Mrs. Vogt, did this exercise disrupt the school day at all? Did students notice anything? Like what was the environment in the school like for all this?
Well, we started communicating the drill and the procedures. Actually, back at the beginning of the school year, parents received notice that if we ever had to leave or reunify, where the location would be in the procedures. They received a reminder in January. And then in February, they started receiving communication about the details of the drill, the date, the time. And we chose last Wednesday because for our school district, that was an early dismissal day at noon. And then our students did not have school last Thursday, Friday, or yesterday. That's how we do our spring break, is those days before and after Easter. Parents had the opportunity to say that their child would participate, and then a parent or a guardian would pick their child up at the church, or they had the opportunity to say, my child won't be at school that day. So out of about 300 students who we had around 150 whose parents participated in the drill. I honestly, Seth, I was hoping for 25%. So the fact that we had about 50%, I was very pleased with. Parents, overall, the response has been that they are glad that we did it. They are glad that we know, from the parent perspective, they are glad they know what to expect and how the process will work. So as far as students, we had from 3-year-old preschoolers through 18-year-old high schoolers who participated in this drill. Mm-hmm. And I am just so proud of our students and staff and the community for their support while we conducted this drill. And I really appreciate, I've sent surveys out to each of the different groups who were involved and people who are not from this area, the number of comments that they've made about how well behaved our students are, how interactive our teachers are with our students, and just how impressed they were with our school community. As a second-year superintendent, it really doesn't get much better than that.
Sure. Well, Mrs. Vogt, again, Mrs. Mary Vogt is the superintendent of Bement Schools, our guest on the phone today. So highlight what it took to get to that point of this exercise last week. I had Chief Bross on last week, and he talked about just all the meetings that it took to get to where you were last week. Speak to the last year or so in preparation of this.
Yeah, countless hours, meetings, collaboration. We keep supplies at the church. There are 6 totes that the church allows us to keep in their storage area, and I took it upon myself to collect all of those items and manage and organize those. All of the schools in the county have contributed financially to that. But Seth, I'm not sure if you're picking up on the fact that sometimes I have control issues. Some people who know me understand that. And so, I understand, like Dr. Widener with Sarah Gordo, there are things that she has worked on and shared with me that have helped so that I do have time to prepare these items for the drill. So I can't even begin to tell you how many hours just, preparing the materials, working with the church to keep everything on site, and then practice with my staff. We did a run through back in February where I assigned some teachers to act as students, some acted as parents, and we simulated a reunification here with just our staff. Gosh, I really don't think I want to try to calculate how many hours this has taken, and meetings in Decatur, meetings in Monticello, meetings here in Bement, but cooperation and collaboration. And I have said that from the start as a superintendent, that I was told, it's a lonely job and, you really don't have anyone to turn to. And I just have not found that to be the case. Anytime we have needed something or I have a question, there's always somebody there to support and to answer questions. And I could not have done that without the collaboration of the other school districts and the local first responder agencies.
Very good. Well, Mrs. Vogt, anything on that I haven't asked about you want to put out there for us this morning?
Seth, I really want to, again, thank our student staff and the community for their support, in addition to all of the local agencies who were involved. Again, the control side of me, when it was first discussed, how do we do this? What will it look like? It was at that point that I decided, you know what, I'm willing to risk. I'm really willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to put us out there for people to look and judge, because somebody needs to do it and somebody needs to take charge. And so I really appreciate all of the groups and agencies who supported us and helped that vision come to light.
Very good. Well, Mrs. Vogt, let's take a break here. Come back with some more. That's Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the phone. More to come with her coming up on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Tuesday. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network. Corn starting the day steady, beans higher, wheat slightly higher. May corn opening 435.5 unchanged. July corn down 1/4, 449, and December new crop 474 1/4. That's down half a penny. May beans starting the day 11.91 1/4, up 5.5. July beans up a nickel, 12.04 1/2, and November new crop 11.87 1/4, up 4 3/4. May Chicago wheat 559 1/2, up 2 1/2. July wheat up 2 1/4, 575. September wheat 590 3/4, up 2 pennies. May bean meal 332.80, that's down 60 cents, and May bean oil 49.09, up 85 cents. That's a check of the opening numbers at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Tuesday morning. And I'm Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network.
MR Systems Wireless is your local internet provider for Clinton and surrounding area. They have the products you want and the local service you deserve. MR Systems Wireless Internet service for home or business includes unlimited data, unlimited streaming, and unlimited calling. Plans start at just $48 a month and get a free Roku 4 lease with our media packages. Get the speed you need with MR Systems Wireless. Call them at 935-2100. That's 935-2100 for MR Systems Wireless.
Have you started spring cleaning? At Love It Once More Thrift Store in Clinton, you can bring us donations during our regular business hours, 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 3 on Saturdays. This is Connie. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or at DeWittDailyNews.com to learn about our weekly sales.
Hi, this is Ryan Utterback with Utterback Real Estate. It's greening up out there, and you know what that means.
St. Patty's Day, lad.
No. Green means go time for buying and selling.
The luck of the Irish be with you.
And that's why you're the other Ryan.
Click the Utterback Real Estate icon on DeWittDailyNews.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. On the phone with us today, again, Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools. And Mrs. Vogt, let's just kind of highlight, I know that you and I were catching up before we got started. Facilities always seems to be kind of a good topic to dive into. And you were telling me that your Board of Education is pushing pause on a project that you all had coming up. What are you doing? What's going on here?
Yeah, so we we have talked about air conditioning our main gym. We self-funded working cash funds back in December in the hopes of getting the go-ahead and moving forward with that project. In the meantime, it was about a year ago, we had a contractor highlight the damage that our boiler chimney has sustained over the years, and digging in, looking, it's actually been something that was brought to the attention a few years ago, but it's quite costly. So what our board has decided to do is pause pursuing air conditioning our gym, because if you can believe, the cost of replacing an original masonry chimney is upwards of $300,000. So we do have some funds in our health, life, safety that we're able to use. And then I did apply for the school maintenance grant, and that will be $50,000 that we receive in grant money. But we don't have all of the money needed to cover that expense. So, hopefully I've got a few more years until I'm eligible to retire. Hopefully we'll be able to revisit that air conditioning project, because we miss out on having summer camps and some of those fall sports, high school girls volleyball. It's very uncomfortable in a gym, and we have graduation coming up May 17th, and our hope at graduation is always that it's not 90 degrees yet.
Now, don't you have, Mrs. Vogt, don't you have kind of those 1 cent dollars to tap into? And, I don't know if Bement's any different, but, I hear money grows on trees in some places. Don't you have access to that?
Yeah. You know what? Those trees weren't planted in our community. So we do get the 1 cent money, but Seth, when we talk about getting the 1 cent, the sales tax money, we're talking about roughly $100,000 a year instead of $100,000 a month, which is what happens in some neighboring districts, especially those in Champaign County. So no, what we receive isn't something that I would be able to fund a project like this one. And again, it's a chimney that is used with our current boiler system. We're lucky that it has withstood the storms and winds that have come through, but I can't in good conscience know the state that it's in and risk having it fall over and, injury being caused to anyone here on our campus.
Yeah. We're going to have to take a drive over to Springfield and figure out where where the state of Illinois comes up with those trees where money grows on it, because I think the way they operate down there, they've got plenty of them. So we're going to have to make a trip down there and figure out the formula.
Absolutely. It's a trade-off though, Seth, because we don't live in a community where as many tax dollars are generated as in communities like Champaign, Decatur, Springfield. But the trade-off is we're very close-knit, very family-oriented, and I can go to my board and say, hey, I think we need to take a minute, pause on this and reflect. And I don't have board members resigning, leaving me without a quorum. So I think I'll take that and maybe someday find that money that grows on trees.
There you go. Well, Mrs. Vogt, in terms of facilities, anything else you're kind of working on or thinking about at this point in time?
Yeah, so Seth, we had some damage to a small gym ceiling back in January. So today is the day, April 2nd. Work is being started to repair that, and that should be done then before next school year starts. And then we have a couple of high school classrooms with flooring that is not in good shape, and so we're getting that flooring replaced this summer. The chimney project will start this summer. And then as far as the technology side, we're taking a look at like our teacher computers. They are pretty old. When you're talking machines that have been in use over 5 years, they've really served their purpose. We have some smart boards that were original from over 10 years ago that are starting to fail. So we're taking a look and using some of those monies that we receive, being a rural school, to improve our technology that the teachers and students have access to.
Good stuff. Well, Mrs. Vogt, in our final moments together here, I know you mentioned in the first segment that you're wrapping up spring break right now, and you're quickly approaching the end of your calendar year. So how about the end of the school year? What's the schedule like?
There is something happening every day between now and May 16th when the students have their last day, and then our staff. The last day is May 17th, and then our high school graduation is that evening of May 17th. Between field trips, special activities, our group that won the right to go to Minneapolis for the Kid Win Challenge, they will leave here in about 4 weeks for that. So, we have 6 weeks left of school and a lot to get done in that time.
Well, we look forward to it all. Mrs. Vogt, what's the best way? Can folks follow along with your district, the happenings in Bement? Can they do that, whether on the World Wide Web, social media? How about those things?
Sure. Our website is www.bement.k12.il.us.
That is Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools. My guest on the phone today. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Network news on the way.
WHOW.
The Big 1520 WHOW Clinton 90.